just going to show you the outline. We have an introduction, and then after the introduction, the part 1 will be religious life at the crossroads. We have 4 sections, in fact. So the one introduction. After the introduction, we have the religious life at the crossroads, the part 1. And then we have the second one, searching for a faith-filled response as the religious life is in crisis. You know, how do we respond to these moments of crisis? And we are looking for a way of responding. And then in this process, as we are looking for a way of responding, we look at the past, what we call facts from a historical perspective. This is where we have the actual reading of the history of consecrated life. And then the first part will be some formational implications. This is where we are going to respond to the crisis, you know, that rediscovering certain things from the past, and you know, we respond to the crisis that we are facing in the contemporary times. So we have introduction, and then we have the religious life at the crossroads. 2, searching for a faith-filled response. 3, facts from a historical perspective. 4, formational implication. So this will be the total theme that we will try to cover, and then we will see how we can proceed. Now, don't worry about this. Is all little bibliography. Those of you are interested, you know, you can contact, you know, for this, you may have to come to Sannyasa and study. You know, we have, these books are in our library. This is all the, you know, different books, but, you know, just for your information, I have put it here. That's all, you know. Okay. Now we come actually to the introduction part. Okay. First of all, you know that whenever we hear the word history, it can be boring. You know, who is interested in history? We have to look back at the past, and so the normal reaction from our heart would be, oh, boring. However, for a comprehensive understanding of any reality, it is necessary to look at the reality from a historical perspective. Normally, there are 2 approaches to history. 2 approaches. One is called informative approach, and the second is called formative approach. One is informative approach, and second is a formative approach. Informative approach looks at the facts, looking at all that happened in the past. It looks as facts historically. What happened, you know, what happened, a bundle of information. A pure historian is expected to be a dispassionate observer, and he look at historical facts disassociated from his own life. In fact, if you want to be an objective historian, you present the facts disconnected from your own life. You don't get involved in it. His or her concern is to collect information from the past. Facts are presented in a linear line and divided into successive chapters, avoiding any repetition. We normally call it for informative approach. This is what normally you find in many historical books. Now, we normally call it this informative approach as a scientific approach that stresses on objective learning. That's what we, though wonderful as a source of knowledge, the danger in this approach is that the historian may approach everything with a cold rationality and ends up with a bundle of information. They'll give you a bundle of information. You can do whatever you want to do with it. And secondly, he or she may choose only certain facts to prove a point, depending upon the assumptions that the historian will have. You know, everyone looks at, we all have our own assumptions about life and world, including about religious life. And so keeping those assumptions, he may be trying to prove a point. He or she may not cover all the facts. Thirdly, all the facts, even though the historian claims objectivity, can be preconsciously influenced by his or her own existing assumptions, or rather prejudices which may not be very obvious to the reader as we listen. So we have to remember that consecrated life is a lived reality which has evolved over centuries and is still evolving. Its history is as old as the history of the church, and it is inseparably bound up with the history of the church. The first task, therefore, is to trace the whole history of consecrated life, its pre-Christian elements, origins in the church, and growth and development of consecrated life. So you will find books of history, but many of those books are not translated much in English. We have only very few books. In fact, not even a good book which can give in English, which can give you this, what we call the informative approach to history. Now, we are concerned here about what we called formative approach to history. Even as we trace the history, consecrated men and women who have embraced this lived reality cannot look at it impersonally or in a disassociated manner. We must learn to look at the history of consecrated life of our own story. We are talking about our own story as consecrated men and women. So we need to look at it in such a way that we are able to renew our own lives in the light of the reading of the history. So this is our concern here. And so why do we read history? We read history in order that we can learn from the past and integrate that wisdom into the present, leading us to a renewal of our own religious life today. So we need to know how to draw on the wisdom of the past and its formative implications that can help us revision our own vocation. Our own vocation, consecration, communion, and mission today. This is what I call by a formative approach. We cannot look at our history impersonally because it is our own story. We need to read history in such a way that we are able to renew ourselves and bring together. Our purpose is to bring together the facts from the past and interpret them in an attempt to revision our consecrated life today. So this is the task of this presentation that I am going to make before you. We begin by looking at the present, and this is what we call revisioning. Let us try to understand what do we mean by revision. We begin by looking at the present. So that is why the first part, religious life at the crossroads. We begin looking at the present, and in order to understand the present, why are we where we are? We look back. We look back at the past. We look back. And in the light of the insights revealed by the facts, we look again at the present in an attempt to revision consecrated life. We study the past in order to help us live in the present in a better way. Otherwise, our study is useless. We must study in order that it may help us to live our life today in a better way. We study our home, our origins, and development over the years in order to know where we are coming from and where we have ended up where we are and why we have ended up where we are, including all the crises that we are passing through. And we look for ways of, how to move ahead, where we need to go. This is called, in fact, revisioning. We look at the past and we look at the present and understanding what is going on. We look at the past to know where we are coming and why, from where we are coming and what are the different stages that we went through and where we have reached, why we have reached where we are. And in the light of that, we learn to look at the future in a new way. This is called revisioning. Now, when I am talking about, I just wanted to read to you a quotation from Pope Francis to this effect. Just listen to this. Recounting our history. This is what I call a revisioning. Recounting our history is essential for preserving our identity, for strengthening our unity as a family, and our common sense of belonging as consecrated men and women. Recounting our history is essential for preserving our identity, for strengthening our unity as a family, and our common sense of belonging. Sorry, there's a repetition. Yeah. More than an exercise in archaeology or the cultivation of mere nostalgia, it calls for following in the footsteps of the past generations in order to grasp the high ideals and the vision and the values which inspired them, beginning with the foundation, the foundresses, and the first communities. In this way, we come to see how the charism has been lived over the years, the creativity it has sparked, the difficulties it encountered, and the concrete ways those difficulties were surmounted. We may also encounter cases of inconsistency, the result of human weakness, and even at times a neglect of some essential aspects of the charism. Yet everything proves instructive and taken as a whole, acts as a summons to conversion. To tell our story is to praise God and to thank Him for all His gifts. So this is actually from Pope Francis. Now, why do we need a revisioning? Why do we have to look at the past and learn from it? Why do we need a revisioning? We all know that religious life currently is undergoing crisis at all levels. We will see that later. Today, all the places where our religious life originated, for example, our foundation foundresses, the places where they were born and founded the congregation, their congregation, our religious life is dying there. And this decline is slowly creeping into our lives here also in India. You know that vocations are declining. The traditional places from where we used to get vocations, we don't get vocations anymore. Many are the reasons for this crisis. And I will just enumerate to you in this introduction a couple of things. We have to remember that though religious life is a lived reality for almost 200 years, we have inherited and accumulated ignorance about religious life. We have inherited and accumulated ignorance about religious life. Why? You have to remember that there has been no systematic theological reflection on religious life until Second Vatican Council. Can you believe it? Even though religious life has been a lived reality, there has not been a systematic theological reflection until Second Vatican Council. Until Second Vatican Council, our religious life was called, not religious life, it was called a life of perfection. Many of you must have seen that movie, The Nun Story. In that, that movie depicts the kind of religious life that existed until Second Vatican Council. Those of you who have seen that movie, who haven't seen it, go and see it. The Nun Story. And there it shows, what is the kind of religious life. And it was understood to be a life of perfection. When the candidates come into the house, the book of the gospel is not given. What was given was the book of rule, and you are supposed to live a life of perfection there. So what's called a life of perfection? So it was simply more a matter of observance of rules that guided our life and mission until Second Vatican Council. The first major document came only during the Vatican Council, Second Perfecta Caritatis. You all know that. In fact, that has been the first theological reflection on religious life in the history of the church. And the Magna Carta, on religious life came during John Paul II's time with the Consecrated. You are aware of that. And then we also must remember that precisely because of this accumulated ignorance, we suffer from a loss of the sense of our historicity. We don't know how we began. What is the way we grew? What is the way we changed? What are the different forms of religious life that emerged over the years in history, and why did they emerge? What were the reasons? We don't know. We suffer from a loss of the sense of our historicity, specificity of our vocation, the identity of religious life, and the proper mission as religious in the church. And so much of the crisis today happened precisely because of the fact that we are not exercising and living the function and mission proper to us as religious life. We live in ignorance of our proper identity and mission in the church as consecrated men and women. And not only that, we don't live, we don't live, other people also do not know. You must have seen, no, in all this controversy that's happening with regard to that Sister Lucy. All these channel people sit on the channel and say, oh, what is wrong in having a car? What is wrong in, wearing a chudidar? After all, she is earning that much money. Is it a big crime? Yeah, people who have absolutely no understanding of religious life are talking about sitting into the channels and discussing about religious life. Now, partly we are responsible for this because we haven't explained to the people, our ordinary Catholic, what religious life is all about. We have to be blamed for that. So the crisis due to not exercising and living the function and mission proper to us. We think of this, if you can always, make your comments about what I say. You don't have to accept anything just because I say it, but look at the reality. We religious study many things systematically except religious life. Do you agree with me? We religious study many things systematically except religious life, our very vocation and identity. We go for a B.Ed, we go for MSW, we go for law, we go for, nursing and teaching and all different kinds of things. We get specialized, but there has not been any study systematically except, we study everything else except religious life, our very vocation and identity. This is a tragedy. The tragedy is to live in forgetfulness of our own identity and mission in the church. We live in forgetfulness. We live in ignorance of our own identity and mission in the church. And theological formation, many times I have been, when we started the Institute of Consecrated Life, precisely this was our reason. We were telling many of the religious men and women, okay, many times even sisters also, they send their sisters to study BTH in the seminaries, in pontifical faculties, study BTH. My dear sisters, please remember, the theological formation imparted in theological faculties are in view of, or as a preparation for priesthood than religious life. It is part of the training for those to become priests. And I used to ask this question. We send the sisters for the BTH. Okay, fundamental understanding of systematic theology is good, fine, no problem with that. But you have to remember that you go there and study something which is actually part of the formation of the priest. Are you going to become priest? Maybe one day. I have no problem with that. But then the theological formation imparted in the theological faculties are in view of preparation for priesthood than for religious life. And look at many of us, many of our religious. The only time we learned about religious life is during the novitiate. And when you didn't know the ABCD of the world, what the church is, what religious life is, what men are, what women are, what chastity, poverty, obedience, we didn't know anything about it at that time. Too early a time, we all studied in the novitiate something about religious life. After that, before you make the perpetual profession, they may arrange for some special programs here and there. That's all. Even though we live it, that's all we study about religious life. And we learned about it at a time when we didn't know, we didn't have an understanding of life and world and at that time. The only time you learn something is during the revision. No wonder today we are having multiple crises, a crisis in the multiple forms, in a crisis of multiple forms in our religious living. Oftentimes, we think of ourselves often as a labor force in the church. We are a cheap workforce in the church. Is this our mission? To be a labor force in the church? Okay. Now, the delay, okay, this is a general problem. And then look at in many clerical congregations, when I have been speaking with the several, provincials and all that, they used to tell me this, the crisis that many of the clerical religious congregations are going through. They are going through a dilemma. What is the dilemma? A superimposition of a clerical model. In clerical religious congregation, there is a superimposition of the clerical model. When a student joins, it decides to become a priest. That's all. And society also looks towards that. When are you going to become a priest? So there is a superimposition of the clerical model. And precisely because of that, there has been a clericalization of religious life. And this clericalization some way contributes to the loss of the sense of the identity and mission proper to religious life. Because the aspect of the religious life seriously suffers when there is a superimposition of the clerical model on it. And that also leads to crisis. That is, there are difficulties in community life. Everyone, they are looking for, even they're all looking for, when am I going to become parish priest? When will I become an assistant? When will I become a parish priest? The diocesan model of thinking. And they often think about pastoral ministry and all that. So all the thing, clericalism and all these abuses actually creep into religious life. So it contributes to the loss of the sense of identity and mission proper. Then, just ask a simple question. How do we name ourselves? What is the name? You must have heard the expression vida religiosa, religious life. And you have also heard the expression consecrated life, vita consecrata. Now, vita consecrata, the consecrated life expression came after the Second Vatican Council. And then, what are these two words which are used to describe our identity? What do they mean? Are they the same or are they different? If they are different, what is the difference? If those of you are listening to me, I'll ask this question. Some of you may be able to answer. Otherwise, vast majority do not know the difference between religious life and consecrated life. We will come to it later in our presentation. But I only wanted to show that many religious have the ignorance about the difference between religious life and consecrated life. The very words which are used to describe our identity, even about our identity, we have a confusion because we don't understand what those two words truly mean. And then, that until the council, we were using the expression vows. Today we speak about the evangelical councils. Why did the church make the difference? Why did the church change the terminology from vows into evangelical councils? What is the reason? If I ask this question, also people may not be able to answer. Several times I've asked this question. What is the difference between vows and religious and evangelical councils? So these are all the things, the people speak about chastity, poverty, obedience. Chastity, poverty, obedience, but the chastity, obedience, poverty exists also in other religions. And in fact, they are also practiced in other places and all that. So are we simply taking a vow? And so why did the church change the expression from theology of the vows to the theology of the evangelical councils? And you have to see these fundamental things. Many religious do not know the distinction between why the church changed the terminology from vows to evangelical councils. Okay, so We, as I said in the formative, we are talking about the formative approach, and this the revisioning we do is in view of a creative fidelity. That's what the Holy Father's expression, Article 37, with a Consecrated, John Paul II speaks, brings the term creative fidelity. The term creative fidelity for the first time in Vita Consecrata. You know, creative fidelity means to propose in a new way the enterprising initiative, creativity, and holiness of our foundation foundresses in response to the signs of the times emerging in today's world. Now, if we have to respond to the signs of the times emerging in today's world, you have to go back and see. How are the foundation, the foundresses, what did they do? What are the kind of creativity and the enterprising initiative they have shown? Not just about our own founder, but also the other foundation, great foundation, foundresses of the various religious orders. You know, we have to have some understanding of that in order to revive ourselves. So, to exercise this creative fidelity, we must ask certain fundamental questions. Why are we in the church as religious? Oftentimes I ask this question, why are we in the church? People tell me, we are in the church because we have to follow Jesus. I say, follow Jesus, all are called to follow Jesus. Even ordinary lay Christians are also called to follow Jesus. Priests are also called to follow, all are called to follow Jesus. So in order to follow Jesus, you don't have to become a religious. You can be an ordinary Christian and be, and follow Jesus. So why are we in the church? What is the mission proper to us? What is the mission proper to us as religious men and women, as consecrated men and women? What is our fundamental mission? What is the common thread that binds and unites our mission proper? What is the common thread that binds and unites our mission proper? What is the mission common to us all religious congregation? What is the mission common to us? We are not discussing the mission proper to each form or to a specific congregation or institute. What is foundational to us as consecrated men and women in the church? This we need to ask, and that is what these are the questions we are going to do. We are going to raise and find response to them. So no wonder we are confused. Many religious, to tell you very frankly, many religious today are truly confused. Because, important to ask the question, I said, why are we in the church and what is our mission proper today? Perhaps due to the lack of clarity with regard to this question, the role of the religious life today is in great confusion. I myself have heard many religious asking this question. What is so unique about our vocation? If I am doing things, teaching, nursing, administration, social work, etc., this is what I am doing, which I can do even as a lay person. And there are so many lay people doing teaching, nursing, administration, social work. There are so many NGOs doing wonderful social work. So if I am doing things which I can do even as a lay person, why should I be a religious? In fact, they often do better than us. If so, what is so specific about my vocation? Is this really meaningful today? What is the relevance in our times? Now, we are confused. No wonder the laity are also confused about us. The laity also asks reverse questions and is confused about the institutions, positions, and possessions of the religious. Most of the time, the wider society looks at priest and religious as one category. They don't know, most of the people do not know the distinction between priest and religious. They often say, priests are the male branch, sisters are the female branch of the same vocation. You go and ask many lay people. They don't know the distinction between priesthood and religious life. They think priests are the male branch, sisters are the female branch of the same vocation. So they don't see the difference. Even when it looks at the religious life as those who are called to renounce everything, but come across as those who end up having everything. It considers religious life as an enterprise on education. They look at religious life and say they run big schools, universities, colleges, and health in the health sector, hospitals, and they offer social services or as a non-governmental organization. Many people see us in that way. The only difference ordinary people may see is that the religious seem to spend more time in prayer. Maybe they live in community, they do not marry. Well, Catholic priests also do not marry, so that is not a big difference. And some of them, some of the religious seem to wear a habit. Some of them seem to spend more, seem also wear habits. This is where, my dear sisters and brothers, this is where the popular perception of the religious most of the time ends up. Moreover, the particular environment that we live in also creates certain conventional, acceptable mold for the religious, and the society expect them to conform to those stereotypes models. So if you are a religious, if you are a sister, you should wear a habit and you should walk 2 by 2 only. Don't go anywhere alone. This is the way you need to be. The society puts a certain mold on you and asks you to fit into that mold. And at any divergence from those mold can be provoking and sometimes controversial. This in turn forces the religious also to remain within the acceptable conforming models of presence and action, whether or not they are in tune with what they have been called to be and to do. Besides, there is also the problem of increasing clericalization, which I have already shared with you. At times, the ordained ministers also do not know what to do with this form of life called religious, except perhaps to make them serve their needs. Most of the diocesan priests, if you go to them, they look at the religious, you are there to serve our needs of the church. And so you have to be there to take care of the sacristy, do the decoration, maybe to teach catechism and all that. That's all. Yeah, so we tell you what to do and you do that. And so they do not know how to handle this group. Oftentimes, including the bishop, sometimes say, oh, you religious are a parallel church. They do not know how to handle this group or to work collaboratively with them, leading to cases of lording over, dominating between the religious and the hierarchy. The result is sometimes mutual suspicion, resentments, and conflicts. Now, okay. It is true that since Vatican II, there was an effort to study history. All of us were, after the Second Vatican Council, study. But remember, the study of the history was more as a return to revive the charisms of our congregations. Unfortunately, we are so wrapped up in our own history. We are so wrapped up, lost in our own history, we are unable to see the common patterns, the abiding truths, and the passing realities that affect the whole of religious life. Because we know only our own. We don't know the whole history of religious life. So we forget that we belong to one charismatic family. Over and above our belonging to our own particular congregation, as religious, as consecrated men and women, we belong to one charismatic family and share a common history and share a common heritage. Some of us have mummified our past, and are out of touch with the founding intuition and the fabulous originality of our foundation foundresses. Our foundation foundresses have become pieces in a museum. You create a statue of them and put it there. And, we are out of touch with the founding intuition and the fabulous originality of our foundresses, because we have mummified our past. Also, a narrow focus on one particular form of religious life that we are familiar. This is what I call the problem of entrenchment. Entrenchment. That means you are familiar only with one particular form, which is the present form of religious life. And so we think this is religious life. And this is what I call by the problem of entrenchment. The loss of a sense of historicity can lead us to this deeper problem, the problem of entrenchment, a major challenge to the process of growing in creative fidelity. And that's why we need to do revisioning, because we are in an entrenched living. Just one little definition on this entrenchment. Entrenchment is a situation where our understanding of ourselves as religious gets so conditioned by a particular historical, regional, socio-cultural, and ecclesial mold that restricts and blurs our vision of religious life. So, about religious life, you know what you are living today or what others are living today. That's all. But we don't realize that we have a mysterious past. We are a group initiated by the Holy Spirit, a charismatic movement initiated by the Holy Spirit, which originated at a certain time, expressed itself in a certain form, and over the years gradually changed, and gave rise to different forms all through the history. To know that, you have to study the history. And it is a self-understanding, though grounded in the present, stifles, blurs, and suffocates our way of seeing ourselves, making it our vision of religious life a tunnel vision. This is what has been happening. My dear sisters and brothers, our roots are in the past, whether you realize it or not. Our roots are in the past. And that past is also sacred past. And the past contains certain vital clues for our growth, for our origin, growth, and development. And we have to be in touch with that. So, we do this particular presentation in order to rediscover and revision ourselves. Secondly, to exercise creative fidelity to our vocation as religious men and women. Thirdly, to trace our common history and our common charismatic heritage in the church. So that will widen our horizons in some way. Now, when we do this, we do not look at everything in the past. We don't look at everything in the past. That is a task of a pure historian. History of consecrated life is bound up with the history of the church, you know that. Our concern, as I told you, is only to arrive at a renewed vision by learning from the past. Why do we need a revisioning? I have explained to you already, to come out of the entrenchment, to rediscover our understanding of our identity and mission proper in the church, to rediscover our historicity, so that we can live in creative fidelity to our vocation today, learning from the past, to overcome the crisis, and to live with a renewed spirit. This is, in fact, our goal. Now, let me go into, before we go into the first part, we look at clarification of the terms. For example, consecrated life and religious life. You have heard that expression, no? Vita consecrata, vita religiosa. What is the difference? Are they the same? First of all, let us, because I may use the word interchangeably, religious life and consecrated life. But even when I use the word interchangeably, you have to know the difference between what is consecrated life and what is religious life. Please remember that. The term consecrated life was used from Vatican Council II. The term used to describe our identity is consecrated life. Now, what is consecrated life? Consecrated life points to all those who seek to follow Jesus through the profession, through the public profession of the evangelical councils. This is the common, the distinctive definition of consecrated life. It refers to all those who seek to follow Jesus through the public profession of the evangelical councils. So, in other words, it involves public witness in the church through your profession of the evangelical councils. So all those who seek to follow Jesus radically through the public profession of the evangelical councils, they are all consecrated men and women. So that is the common definition that we have. So now, and if you want another definition for it, the goal of consecrated life is to grow in conformity with the Christ of the gospel, poor, chaste, obedient. By assimilating and appropriating the very life, vision, and mission that Jesus lived, and to reincarnate it contextually, meaningfully, relevantly, wherever we are. These people are called consecrated men and women. So under this category comes hermits. You must have heard of the hermits, no? Those who live in hermitages. Hermits, monks, monastics, nuns, monastics, mendicant orders, apostolic congregations, secular institutes, and some way the societies of apostolic life, and also the missionary congregations. All of them belong to this one big family of consecrated life. This is the reason why the Magna Carta on religious life, written by John Paul II, calls the document Vita Consecrata, not Vita Religiosa, Vita Consecrata. Now, what is religious life then? Religious life is one form of consecrated life. It's one form of consecrated life. Means religious are those who seek to follow Jesus radically through the public profession of the evangelical council that we have. But in addition to that, they are religious are called to live in community. Community life is a must for the religious. Not so for the consecrated men and women. They can exist with the community. They are not bound also live in community. Hermits don't live in community. Monasticism evolved later. Even in the desert, you know that they were, the first form was the eremitical form, people living alone. Later came cenobitic form, communal, small communities of hermits started living. And so religious life is one form of consecrated life with a special commitment to live in community. So communitarian prayer, communitarian meal, communitarian recreation, communitarian apostolate, communitarian mission, all and a corporate living, communitarian. Everything that they do is governed by their insertion into a community. So if you want to do a mission, you cannot go and start a mission. Your desire for it to begin a new ministry or a mission must be surrendered, must be presented to the provincial council, the congregational authorities, and they discuss, they discern, and when they ratify the mission which you are proposing, it is no longer your mission. It becomes a mission of the congregation. So, even if you go to the mission first, if you are going to start the mission, always remember, it is not your mission. It is a congregational mission. So you have to be accountable to the congregational authorities for that. And they also have to endorse the mission, and they have to see, suppose you get sick and after some time you are transferred, somebody else is put there. Somebody else is put there. And your accounts and everything is, presented to the authority. And when you take up that mission, you should also remember that one day you have to let it go. You have to let it go and move on. Let somebody else will come and take the place. If you are remaining in that ministry, thinking that you are eternally needed to do this ministry, you are on a wrong track. And you will create problems also later. You may not want anybody to come in and take that place. So you have to be flexible with your own presence, because it's no longer your mission, it is the mission of the congregation for a religious. So see, that's why once you know the fundamentals, many things will get automatically clarified. And this is the reason why that you cannot take a loan, you cannot go to the court on your own. You need to live in a community, and you have to get the consent of the concerned superiors for all these kinds of actions. Yeah. Okay, so consecrated life is wider and more inclusive. And therefore, the document is titled Vita Consecrata by John Paul II. We are coming into the part 1. Religion. Okay, 1 minute, one more thing here, the methodology. Okay. So I said, no, we have 4 parts. We don't know whether we're able to cover everything, but we will see. The first part, we shall begin by looking at the present scenario, namely consecrated life at the crossroads and the resulting manifold forms of crisis that we are passing through currently. From there, we shall search for a way of responding to the present crisis. My concern is to offer a unique way of looking at the crisis. For this, we need to move from a restrictive consciousness into a broader, dialogical, integrational consciousness. Today, we are living in a global world. So we cannot operate from a tunnel look. We have to have, so the second section, we are trying to develop a multi-dimensional lens. With that lens, we move into the third section. Thus, we begin looking at the facts, scanning through the origin and development of the various forms of consecrated life throughout the history. This is the historical part, the third one. From this historic overview, we shall draw certain foundational and formatively relevant implications that can help us to deal with the crisis and move on to a renewed religious presence. In this section, we shall deal with the threefold phase of consecrated life as consecration, communion, mission. Mainly, we will elaborate on this. What do we mean? Because these are the 3 fundamental dimensions of consecrated life: consecration, communion, mission. If you go to Vita Consecrata has only 3 chapters. Besides an introduction and conclusion, only 3 chapters. The first chapter deals with consecration. The second chapter deals with communion. The third chapter deals with mission. So This is where we are solely trying to revision for the future. Essentially, in terms of consecration, communion, and mission, we will try to search for what do these terms actually mean. That's it. So this is the methodology we will follow. Okay, even if you don't complete, at least you see this is what we are going to see. And suppose you want to know more about it, come to Sannyasa Institute. And online classes, they have their own limitations. You come and study here for our diploma and the postgraduate program. We have a master's and a licentiate in theology of religious life. As I told you, very few religious studies, and we are actually, we have done it, and we are inviting people to come, but then because of the COVID situation, it has been a little difficult, but that's what I am presenting to you. We study everything systematically except religious life. So come to Sannyasa to make a systematic study on religious life in all its dimensions. Yeah, we go to the next. Okay, part 1, religious life at the crossroads and the resulting crisis. This is what we will see now in the first part. This is a look at contemporary religious life. Now, the context. What is the context that we are living in? We all know that we are living in the new millennium of the 21st century. A new millennium. And this millennium is one of increasing changes. Increasing changes. There is an explosion of information technology, and the information explosion through your mobile, through your WhatsApp and your internet and all that. You have on your fingertips any information you want from any part of the world. Increasing changes, information explosion. Whether we want it or not, we are all undergoing changes and affected by the changes that happen all around us. All around us. Pluralism is the norm of the day. Pluralism means one reality can be lived and expressed in different ways, different form. Religious pluralism, cultural pluralism, linguistic pluralism, ritualistic pluralism. All those things, these divergences, we were not very conscious in the past, but today, pluralism. So it can be this way, it can be that way, it can be that way also. So that is the way we see pluralism in religion, pluralism in languages, pluralism in cultures, and pluralism, the caste, all those things, we started becoming more and more conscious about it. The caste consciousness, all because of the pluralism. So whether we want or not, we are undergoing changes and affected by the changes. Pluralism is a norm of the day. And we also have to remember that every product of the human creativity, every product of the human creativity has a recoiling effect on us. It has what we create has the ability, capacity to form your life in a negative way, positive way. So more are the inventions, creativity. All those creativity can also affect you formatively or deformatively, negatively or positively. So that means we are undergoing changes all the time. This is the world we are living in. It was not so 50 years back. It was not so even 20, 25 years back. We didn't have mobile phones. We didn't have even, I remember I am in Karmalaram, when we were in the novitiate in the 70s and all that, we had to wait for 2 hours to make a call to someone in Bangalore city. We had to book the call and wait for 2 hours. Can you imagine? In 70s, I'm talking about. Now we are almost, 17, 70s. So after 40 years, you look at all the changes that happened. When I was growing up, there was no electricity. When I grew up, there was no electricity. Slowly, only electricity came. We didn't have motor pumps. We had to pull the water from the well. So look at all those transformation changes, all of them. They have a recoiling effect on our lives. So we are living in a rapidly changing world, a rapidly changing society, and a rapidly changing church. Just little few things. We are living in a rapidly changing world. The scientific, technological, and informational revolution it has brought many changes in the world today. I don't have to describe, you only look around and see. There has been an increase of man's power, control, and effective use and manipulative skills of the environment and people and its resources. Look at all the advertisement industry. Advertisement industry. What is it? Advertisement industries are all different ways of manipulating you and make you buy the things that they want to promote. And look at the effect. So increase of man's power, control, and effective use and manipulative skills of the environment has increased. Today, we are making more or less a conquest into the unknown with the scientific expeditions, scientific investigations. We are making a conquest into the unknown. In the past, things which were hidden, mysterious, are slowly being disclosed. So conquest into the unknown. And so precisely because of that, some years people were thinking now, there is no need for a God because the realm of God also we have conquered. Somebody went up to the moon and said, I look for God here, I didn't find him here. Asked, who told him that God is sitting in the moon? That is coming from a wrong conception also. Nobody said God is sitting in the moon there. So, but this is the thing, when you make more and more a conquest into the unknown, God is being pushed to the frontiers and sometimes is made superficial. Even though there has been earlier, maybe around 10-15 years back, we had this talk about science and religion debate, as though they are mutually contradictory. Suppose you are a religious, you have to be against science. If you are a scientific man, you should be against religion and all that. But now it has come down very much because people know that we need both. Especially the coronavirus has brought in an awareness that there are many mysteries that we don't understand. So every science is in fact an entry into the land of the unknown. So it is a servant of the mystery of God actually. That's the way we need to look at science. They are not against religion. So anyway, so a conquest into the unknown. And so the world today has become a global village. A global village. Even if you haven't traveled and even if you haven't gone to Niagara Falls, you can have a beautiful vision of the Niagara Falls, a panoramic vision through your internet. You don't have to go there. All those, your favorite actors, wherever they are from, whatever scenery from any part of the world, they can be made available to your bedroom. Any number of movies, any music that you want, anything that you want to see, they're all available on the fingertip in your mobile. This is the way we have become. The world has become a global village. And so a global consciousness is emerging. This is the reason why earlier our pandemic were localized pandemic. Now you see, along with the globalization, coronavirus also has become global. Global consciousness. Today, we are living more and more in a corporate world with the media in their hands. Political parties endorse their own media. Big business establishment run their own media. And so the corporate world with the media in their hand, shaping us. They shape you. They can shape you in what you want to eat, what you want to dress, what you want to talk, what you want to believe. They can make you dance according to their tune. This is what I call by modern forms of colonialism. Modern forms of colonialism. British are no longer ruling us, but there are multinational corporations ruling us, making us to believe their own versions of the truth. Whatever news they can make you believe whatever they want you to believe, make you act in the way they want you to act, talk in the way they want you to talk, make you dress in the way they want you to dress. This is what I call by modern forms of colonialism. Yeah. Okay. So now this is about the changing world. We are living also in the midst of a changing society. A society, look at the society now. Socio-political economic changes. The fall of communism, with the Russian collapse of Russia and the fall of communism, rise of the market economy, capitalism, consumerism, individualism, hedonism, comfort culture, adaptation to the world, a permissive way of living, more liberal kind of living today. Socio-political economic changes that happen. You take a look at around the world, the way that we are living today. Then a rapidly changing church. Church was also changed. There has been a diminishing absolutism of the church. Earlier in the past, church had more power. It told you what to eat, what to dress, how to live, how to make love, what is the way to walk around. Everything was determined by the authority of the church. A diminishing absolutism of the church in the face of increasing modernization and secularization. The Christendom mentality. Church was the center of the world. May not be here in India, but in Europe, church was the center of the world. And so it dictated times. The time that the popes were consecrating, their own, installing the kings, all that time, the Christendom. We had a lot of power at that time. But today, even in Europe and everywhere, many of the churches are becoming museum, church-going people are declining. And so there has been a diminishing absolutism of the church in the face of the increasing modernization and secularization. Today, more exchanges between church and the world. And therefore, we come more and more under the pervasive power of the world. The world has become more appealing today. We have come under the pervasive power of the world. Its forces, its models, its heroes. So you have beauty stars, political stars, movie stars, sports stars, all the stars. You know what you're talking about. You have fan associations, many associations built around a fan, their popular star. So we are in a starry world. Political stars, so many bhaktas, Modi bhaktas and this bhaktas and actors and actresses and all that. They are luminaries today. So we have come under the pervasive power of the world, its forces, its models, its heroes. So as a result of it, there is a new freedom. Hello, can you hear me? Okay, yeah.
Yes, Father.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there has been today we talk about new freedom. And that is the reason why you see in the past, some 25 years back, Madre Roma locuta cosa cosa finita, or Madre locuta cosa finita. Mother has spoken, the case was over. The superior has spoken, the case was over. Today, the superior speaks, but the case is not over because other people also can speak. Democracy. And so naturally, there is more freedom today for people. You can be, you can express your opinions freely, and, a new freedom. You have the freedom to live your life in the way you want to live. You have your own privacy of your own rooms, and you can do whatever you want to do. You can do. There is a new freedom, an importance given to the person. Earlier, individuals were sacrificed for the sake of the common mission. Today, we say we need to listen to the individuals also. Personalism, important given to the human person. Turning more to man and world. New psychological theories. There are today 50 definitions of human personality, 50 personality theories, all of them giving different versions of the concept of the human being. New psychological theories that have revolutionized the way we see and understand ourselves in the church.
Father, do you have some problem with your video?
I think it is flickering. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It is flickering, and then it goes off.
Okay, you may pin it again.
Yeah.
Maybe a little loose connection may be there, I think.
Maybe, yeah.
Sound has no problem.
Sound has, only the video has the problem, I think, no?
Yeah, maybe you can stop the video and you can talk also.
Right.
Okay.
Maybe some of you are familiar with my face, so I can remain hidden and speak.
Certainly.
Okay, right. Once in a while we'll try to give it. Anyway, okay. So today, new psychological theory that have revolutionized the way we see and understand ourselves in the church. And so, my dear sisters and brothers, what is happening is every major institution is in crisis. Marriage is in crisis. Today, you have divorces unheard of. You have intercaste marriages, interreligious marriages, so many of them, especially with the global world. And then earlier and all that, only the father used to go and work, mother used to stay at home. Now both the fathers and mothers are working, and a mother is staying at home. You think that, and she says, suppose sometimes when you ask some mothers, what do you do? They say, I don't do anything. What they mean to say is that I don't work outside, but they don't realize that running the home is a great work. But so earlier the father was the breadwinner, mother used to stay. Now the father and mother, nuclear families, and they both are working. And so they bring down the number of children also, and so that they can enjoy life, all those kind of thing, So every major institution is in crisis. Marriage, family, and so too religious life. So we come to that now. Religious life also is in crisis. All these have impact on religious life. All these have tremendous effect in the consciousness of a religious trying to live his or her call in fidelity to God. Religious life today has become a ship floating on the ocean of time, whose tides are presently governed by the rise of pluralism. What happens then is, hence, there are varied and even opposing directives affecting the way we live our life. We are bombarded with all kinds of directives through the information, through the media. We are getting so many directives with regard to what is the way I must live my life. Before the Second Vatican Council, all the sisters in a congregation, they were all doing one ministry. Suppose they join a congregation, school ministry. So they all went into the school. Now, because of the pluralism, even after your profession, you can go into any ministry you want. You can go into school, you can do social work, you can go into formation, different work, which was not there earlier. And so naturally, an young sister after the profession become confused. What is that I must do? You know, I can go this way, I can go that way. Somebody will tell you do this, somebody will tell you do that. So hence there are varied and even opposing directives affecting the way we live our life, and also understand and interpret our vows. When you study, you go to a class on evangelical counsels, suppose the father is a very conservative father, he will give his own version of the vows. And sometimes, and suppose it's a liberal man, he will give a liberal interpretation to you. A liberal interpretation. Suppose you are an authoritarian person, you say that no, whatever the superiors say, you have to obey, you know. And suppose you are a democratic person, no, we all have a right to speak, and a good superior who should facilitate more of a democratic process, depending upon which school you belong. So affecting the way we live our lives, understand and interpret our vows, build and live our community. There are many directives, opposing directives, contradicting directives with regard to this. So what happens then is, for those who seriously look at religious life today, many questions will begin to torment their hearts. Many questions. We want to live sincerely. Many questions will torment your hearts. Many questions. Since the council, since the Second Vatican Council, there has been new experiments and proposals aimed at giving renewal to religious life. So we had so many seminars, charism meetings, charism conferences at different assemblies and different workshops and all that we have been having. In spite of all this, you know that there is still a disillusionment. So there has been new experiments and proposals aimed at giving fresh vigor to evangelical counsel, but it has also been a time of tension and struggle. You read Vita Consecrata 13, Holy Father talks about this aspect in Vita Consecrata. So in the midst of these changes, pulls and pushes, pulling and pushing, it is no wonder that many of us remain confused and confounded. This confusion has brought out a crisis of different levels, crisis of meaning. People ask the question, is this life really meaningful? And they ask the question, is this life really relevant today? We asked that question. And then the question I asked earlier, no, I am teaching, I am nursing, but there are so many lay people also teach. They also do nursing. So why should I become a religious in order to teach, in order to nurse? Why do? In fact, you know, they have more struggle. They have to teach and they have to go back and cook their food also. Here we don't have to cook. Everything is served. And so why should I become a religious in order to teach? Why should I become a religious in order to nurse? 2 + 2 is equal to 4. Any fool with a degree can teach that. You don't have to become a consecrated person to do so. So what is the meaning then? What is the relevance? What is the direction the religious life is taking today? When you look at your own communities, you know, and all that, you will be asking this question, what is the direction that the congregation is taking today? And you don't feel comfortable with the direction. You think that it is a wrong direction. So there is crisis of meaning, crisis of relevance, crisis of direction, crisis of orientation, the new orientation. See, for example, today, all the religious congregations which are coming into Bangalore, the other day, our Peter Machado Bishop was telling me, all the religious congregations which are coming to Bangalore, they all want to start schools. Whether you have a charism for school or not, everybody wants to start school this day because there's a source of income. So we wonder, even though you have no charism to start a school, also such congregations also are starting schools. And so there is an alienation from your own founding charism. So crisis of meaning, crisis of relevance, crisis of direction, crisis of orientation, crisis of purpose. What is the goal of my life? All these crises are in fact happening. Crises of various types: identity, meaning, relevance, direction, orientation, purpose. This is happening to us. Now, here I have put, now when we are talking about the crisis, my concern is just to show you the levels of the crisis, just to show little examples. You look at your own communities and see what is actually happening. On the one hand, you have people speaking about too much dependence on institutional parenting. Some people are so comfortable in the structures, institutional parenting, structures, rules, regulations, leading to all forms of enslavement, dogmatism, ritualism, legalism happening on one side. On the other hand, you will also find a group insistence on self-responsibility and individuality. So I need to be responsible for myself. So you don't have to tell me every time what to do. I know what to do. So I am the one responsible and I don't have to listen to you. So there is an insistence on self-responsibility, individuality. I am an individual, respect me. I am a person, respect me. And individuality leading to a contempt for the structural restraints, rules, regulations, and thus people fall into individualism. I know the truth and nothing but the truth, and nobody has a right to tell me what the truth is. So you don't have to tell me, I know. So you fall into individualism on the other hand. Look at next. There are some who are insisting on veils, habits, and enclosures. If you are a religious, you have to wear the habit. If you are a religious, you have to wear the veil. We have our enclosure. Don't bring anybody inside, leading to protectionism and a kind of infantilism. If you push these things too much, you will fall into protectionism or infantilism. On the other hand, there is also a movement to it, demanding freedom for all, give freedom for all. So let everyone be whatever they want to be. Allow people to be whatever they want to be, leading to a loss of visible identity, and blind adaptation and secularization. You conform more to the ways of the world today. You must have seen, many religious wearing fashionable dress, and not only fashionable dress, but the what we call stylistic, shirts made by specific companies. They will only wear those dress. So kind of prestige, that all that. Leading with identity, blind adaptation to the world and secularization. Yeah. Then, on the one hand, you have a separatist and elitist presence, that we are set, we say we are set apart from the world. We are people set apart. And the world is a contaminated world. And I don't want to share anything with that. Inside the convent, everything is pure, everything is serene, uncontaminated life. A separatist, elitist presence leading to a disassociation from the ordinary people, and leading to a disassociation from the ordinary people, leading also to elitism and insensitivity. Even during Corona time, there have been many religious, their only concern is to protect themselves. No matter what happened in the outer world, they don't bother. And safeguarding ourselves. On the other hand, driven by the ideals of immersion, involvement, participation, equality. These are the people who speak for involvement, immersion, insertion, participation, collaboration, sharing in the life and struggles of the people and all that. And then what happens is when you push it to an extreme, leading to a loss of uniqueness and specificity of your own call. You end up leaving the vocation of somebody else then. This happens. Then, for some, perception of authority as domination, leading to imposition, control, manipulation, and subjugation of others. On the other hand, some people see authority as service, subsidiarity, and collegiality. So they say, I am the superior, I must be more participative, yeah, I must be collegial. And so you emphasize the values of subsidiarity and collegiality and democracy and all that, leading, when you push it to an extreme, leading sometimes to a collapse of genuine exercise of authority. And that is the reason why today people are reluctant to take up positions of authority many times. A local superior, nobody wants to be a superior because it is troublesome. Why to take the trouble? So that is it. So on the one hand, your authority as domination, you push to an extreme, you fall into this, or you see authority as a service or subsidiarity, you push it to an extreme, you'll fall into this imbalances. Then love of and fidelity to community. Some people speak about, I love my congregation, I love my community, I love my tradition, my congregational tradition. Oh, we are the first and the best. We are better than others. Our congregation is, we have a good tradition. Look at them, they are all horrible, they are all poor creatures. We are, yeah. Love of the congregation and fidelity to the community, leading to communitarianism. Leading to communitarianism and suppression of the individual. When you are for the community, then you will begin suppressing individual. There are sometimes, there are sisters who are working in a school office as an accountant for 25 years. 25 years without any transfer for them. And they are asked to stay there. You are sacrificing people for the sake of the community. Here, community is important. Members are not important at all. On the other hand, you will also find people respecting the freedom, the space, and the initiative of the members. So leading to a free-for-all living. Free for all. Leading to disintegration and fragmentation of the community. We are caught up in the illusion of unlimited, when you talk about freedom, and there are psychological theories. Suppose you studied Maslowian psychology and some other psychology, then they will tell you, hey, you are the maker of your own destiny. Use the freedom and be what you want to be. Build your life in the way you want it to be. Yeah? That one. This belongs to that. This, caught up in the illusion of unlimited possibilities. People think that I have unlimited possibilities and the pursuit of happiness. So members choose to live alone, to pursue on their own and to do whatever they want to do and to escape from the burden of the community living. This is the other side. You will find all these are reason for crisis in among the religious. Okay, now look at this obedience. Some people look at your view of obedience as blind obedience. If you look at obedience as blind obedience, whatever superiors say, I must obey. What happens? Leading to infantilism, immaturity, and passive submission. You become infants. So you will find in a convent, there are several infants, even though they are 35 or 50 years old. Infantilistic living. On the other hand, moved by the ideals of freedom, space, and responsibility, obedience as, that I have to be free, I can listen, I have the ability to listen to others, I must also listen to others. And so moved by ideals of freedom, space, responsibility, leading to arrogance and independence. Then again, poverty. We speak about poverty as denial or detachment from the things of the world. Our classical definitions now, which we offer, Poverty as denial of things, detachment from things, hatred towards things, not having anything, and they define all this in this way. Detachment from the things of the world, leading to indifference and disinterestedness towards the world. If you look at poverty as a denial of the world, detachment from the world, then you don't worry about, let the world go to dogs. I don't bother. On the other hand, you look at poverty more as a positive use of material things for life and mission, leading to a life cluttered with too many possessions today. That's why some religious, when they go and transfer, you have to bring truck to transfer their this thing, leading to a life cluttered with too many possessions. And they justify all their all modern electronic gadgets, very expensive ones, iPhones and all that. And then you say that, well, I need it for my ministry. And especially when you are, suppose you are principal of a prestigious school, when you are on a transfer, the teachers will come and buy you a 75,000 iPhone and give you as a gift. And a poor sister working in a rural convent, when she goes on transfer, she gets nothing. Nobody gives her anything. What a discrepancy. People say this, and that is why, then naturally the young one also aspire to be in positions of, glamour, where I can get into that. I will also one day become a principal, and so that I can have all this kind of thing. All this is happening in religious life today, leading to a life cluttered with too many possessions. Then enforcing silence and solitude. So there you emphasize rightly silence and solitude for prayer and contemplation. But you emphasize silence and solitude, leading to a loss of in touchness with the reality and prudent involvement. These are the people who emphasize detachment. On the other hand, you will find there is also movement towards call for social action and involvement, leading to blind and impulsive activism. Then again, perception of unity. Some people think that perception of unity of ministry as monolithic unity. If I am doing it, every sister also must do the same, leading to a suspicion and discomfort for variety and differences in life and apostolate. Perception of unity of ministry as monolithic unity, leading to a suspicion and discomfort for variety and differences in life and apostolate. On the other hand, you will find pluralism in ministry. Okay, anybody can do any ministry, leading to a loss of a common unifying charismatic vision, a kind of pluralism without purpose. You will end up there. Then again, here, love of sacred ministry. Some people think that I love sacred ministries. What are sacred ministries? Sacred ministries are teaching catechism, teaching in the school, and social work. Assisting at the liturgy, assisting in pastoral ministry. These are so-called traditional ecclesial ministries. Some people love of sacred ministry, ecclesial ministry, leading to a discomfort with and fear for the secular world and involvement. And these are people who don't like social work. And those people who do a social work, this kind of people will criticize them. You are doing mundane work. You are not doing God's work. We are doing God's work. So oftentimes social work is suspiciously looked at by this group of people. Love of sacred ministry is leading to a discomfort with and fear for the secular world. On the other hand, driven by a desire to transform the world, thereby becoming victims of secularization and modernism. Search for productive ministry, leading to professionalism, danger. Workaholism, another danger. Idolatry of efficiency and the benefits attached to those benefits attached to your power and your positions of glamour, attraction. On the other hand, there is one group being tradition. They will, if they want to introduce something, they will go and look in the constitution and directory and see whether it is written there. If it is not written there, no way. Because we are tradition bound, leading to traditionalism, conservatism, and fear of the new. They don't want any changes. They want to live in the way that they have been living in the past. This you find. On the other hand, openness, some people are there, open for change, flexibility, adaptability, creativity, leading to a certain contempt for the past and its wisdom. These people say wisdom is in the new, not in the old. The old to be discarded. So there is no, they have a contempt for the past and its wisdom. Then again, love, some people love, as I told you earlier, here the new point, love of the congregation. Oh, I love my congregation. Oh, I love my congregation. And leading to triumphalism, powerism, congregationalism, unhealthy comparison, and competition. They say our school, their school. Look, oh, our school has 100% standard. Oh, theirs is only 70. Ours is better. You walk around keeping your collar, high. Love of the congregation leading to triumphalism, powerism, congregationalism, unhealthy comparison and competition, especially among religious orders running huge institutions in big cities. They run into competition. On the other hand, on the other hand, all are the same, leading to a leveling down mentality and a loss of uniqueness and fidelity to one's own charismatic heritage. You go to the other side. I told you earlier about love of the community, I love my community, I love my congregation. That is why every CRI meeting, if you go and notice, all the sisters coming from the same congregation will always sit together. I asked them, why do you do so? They say, Father, we love our community. What a hypocrisy. What a hypocrisy. It is just that you don't want to simply go and associate with somebody else. There are other religious also coming. No, that's an opportunity for you to go and sit. You have a narrow understanding of community. In your congregation, in your community, you are there together all the time. No, fine. But when you come for a CRI meeting, that's the opportunity for you to meet with other members coming from other congregations and all that. And what is the problem? And this is the problem with the people who emphasize on my congregation, my church, my community, and all that, that you are not open to other people. I always remember one example, a junior sister, after having lived in her own convent and congregation during the commandancy, aspirancy, postulancy, novitiate, juniorate, first year, everything she did in her own congregation. Later, she came to study nursing in St. John's Medical College. And there are almost 400 sisters are living there. And one day the sister came crying to me and she said, Father, I am very lonely, Father. Why? I have no community here. I have no community. She is living with the 500 nuns and she is telling me she has no community. This is our problem. So these are all kind of perversions, in this way. So you can have love of the congregation leading to triumphalism, powerism, congregation, unhealthy comparison, competition. On the other hand, you push, all are the same. Oh, my congregation, that also, this is also same, that charism is my charism, everything is the same, leading to a leveling down mentality and a loss of uniqueness and fidelity to one's own charismatic heritage. Lastly, continuity of the mission entrusted, leading to a nostalgia and clinging to institution, structures, and forms of apostolate and a fear of letting go. You don't want any revision of positions. You are in a mission entrusted and you cling on to that mission, even though there is no need for that ministry. Remember, sometimes people talk about charismatic fidelity. They say charismatic fidelity. What is charismatic fidelity? Our founders took care of unwed mothers. Very good. And so today, charismatic fidelity means that I must also take care of unwed mothers. Now, suppose in the place where you live, there are no unwed mothers. What will you do? You have to get people married, make them unwed and serve. And they say charismatic fidelity. What a hypocrisy because of this. Continuity of the mission entrusted, leading to a nostalgic clinging to institution, structures, ministries, forms of apostolate, and a fear of letting go. But on the other side, revision of positions. Yes, you revise positions and reorganization, leading sometimes to incoherence, loss of purpose, and charismatic fidelity. You keep on refining your position and reorganization. Sometimes you lose in the touch with the unifying charismatic vision. So I think I will stop here now. Okay, now I would ask you, the participants, if you get some chance, you discuss this, okay? You discuss this in your group. Suppose you are in a community. What are some of the questions, struggles that arise in your heart? When you look at the religious life of yours and of others, what are some of the questions, struggles arise in your heart? 2, what is the preferred way of responding or coping with it? 3, what are your core feelings? Anxiety, rejection, fear, meaningless, frustration, loneliness, or hope, joy, support, encouragement. When you look at your own religious life, what do you really feel? What are the questions that arise in your heart? How do you respond to those questions? What are your core feelings? You can share it. It would be nice.